Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books right here in the live studios at Radha Lane. Yes, we're not joking. It's not just a nickname. The street we live on is Radha Lane. It's been officially named by, and you can send letters here, and they get here. At the live studios. Just down a pathway down to Sri Sri Radha Nilamadava's most beautiful temple, Korni Thai, and Giridhar Govardhan, the largest Giridhar Govardhan Shila outside of India, is right here, that we get darshana. Yes. My dear one, Govinda Maharaj, carried it all the way from Govardhan, got it on the plane, put him on a paid seat. all the perks, and everybody was looking, what's this, And he got an opportunity to preach the whole way, pure love, Govardhan Bhav. I was hearing Gopi Pranadana Prabhu, as I do every day. I hear two persons every single day for at least an hour. Srila Prabhupada, of course, and Gopi Paranadana Prabhu, who I worked with very intimately in helping him edit the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which, according to my godbrothers, who are the most rasika and connoisseurs of transcendental literature, say is the gold standard for transcendental literatures, the English and transcendental literatures. So he was talking about Devahuti when she bathed in the Pavana Sarovara to please her husband. She'd been living she was a princess and accustomed to all the worldly comforts and luxuries of palace life. Her father was Swayambhuva Manu, the real king, the first king of this universe. And so when it was time for her to marry, she was in marriageable age, Swayambhuva Manu took her and his wife out touring to find a husband, and he found Kardama Muni, and she already knew that she fancied him. She'd heard about him. She already knew that she fancied him. And Kardama Muni is a Prajapati and a great sage, not just an ordinary Prajapati, but a great sage. And after years and years of, not only that, but Lord Vishnu came personally to Kardama Muni and told him that Swayambhuva Manu was going to come there with the love of his life. He wanted to get married. He was a Prajapati. It was his duty. It wasn't out of lust. It was out of duty. So she showed up, and she lived with him as a sage in the middle of the forest with no, amenities that a princess is used to having. And so by the time it came time for the wish to be fulfilled, she was going to become the mother of Kapila Dev. They were the mother and father of Kapila Dev. You cannot become mother and father of God in this world unless you are actually not just advanced devotees, but pure devotees in the most elevated stage of love. And before they did that, she had to be satisfied. So she was, by that time, a little skinny and dirty, matted hair. She didn't look like a princess, and she wasn't one that you would kind of get fired up about, So on that level. So then it's described that she took this rasayana. She was taken care of by 1,000 maidservants created by it doesn't say that it was created by him, but somehow or other he arranged that there'd be maidservants to take care of her and bring her back to her natural youthful beauty. And they were talking about rasayana. And then he made this wonderful connection between what we do every day, hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and that process. And it goes like this. Sitam prasangam mama virya sambido bhavanti rit karana. Rit means the heart, karana means the ear. Rasayana kata. So just like she was getting this rasayana, and they have in the Ayurvedic system all these different kind of. We've heard about this. We've heard about, the nectar that Dhanvantari brought from the churning of the, the milk ocean that everybody wanted to get a little bit of, and drink nectar of immortality, and all of that. Somarasa, and all kinds of different beverages that the higher personalities take to rejuvenate themselves and stay young for very long periods of time. So this is Rasayana Kata. It's for the heart, the spiritual heart, and the ear. And it leaves out the brain. Brain not needed. It goes right to the heart, through the ear. And gives what? Shraddha, ratir, bhakti. It gives a rati, a taste, bhakti, of love. Anukramishati. Anukramishati means to follow in the order of those who have it. So that's what we're doing every day. We're getting Rasayana Kata, and we may not realize it. Sometimes we can't even stay awake, or we think our mind's going here and there, or whatever. But you put yourself, you take responsibility for putting yourself in front of this sound vibration every day, and you will get love of God. Okay. In the association of pure devotees, satam, this Rasayana Kata is not possible unless it is done with satam, sangha, satam prasangam, mamavirya.
The Wizard of Radha.
Wizard of Id. Wizard. What? Wizard of what?
The Wizard of Radha Lane.
That was a classic. We got to put that one in a book or something. Are you writing a new book now? In the process? He won't say it even if he was. He's too humble, shy. Okay. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the heart and the ear. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. So let's hear about the literature that gives us this nectar. From that was Srimad-Bhagavatam.
What verse is
That is 3:25. So now Srila Sanatana Goswami, and you'll again have to forgive my voice. I couldn't read today. It was just my voice just went out. All the stuff that's going on the last few days. It's like a fine-tuned machine, the human body. Okay. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram, the Bhagavatam is the Rasayana Kata. It's the essence of all rasa, Rasayana Kata. Srila Sanatana Goswami describes it like this. Sarvastra Vishiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidwanduditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life heir of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varsha Shadayate Sarvada Sarvasejaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nistadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin adinityochatakara hanamun shagadachin mam premna rit kandayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Okay, we've reached the 9th canto, which I've said every day for a few days, and I'll continue saying it until we get to the 10th canto, because we have to earn our way to the 10th canto. We've learned all about the creation of the universe in great detail. If you can actually memorize that and explain it to somebody in depth without making a mistake, with all the details, connected together, then you become removed from the modes of material nature. Until you're removed from the modes of material nature, you cannot get love of Krishna. And there's lots of attractions out there in the modes of material nature. And then, towards the end of the first 9 cantos, we're hearing a lot of things about the genealogical tables of kings. This is to test you, to see how you're going to hear that after you've heard the whole 8 cantos of Bhagavatam. Are you going to turn your nose up at hearing the genealogical tables of your forefathers and forefathers of everyone in the world? Or are we just going to be attached to our own family and where they came from? We want to know about that. Do we want to know about where all of us came from? Are we interested in the greater family of the living beings of the universe? That's real love. So this is the test. You've come through all this nectar, and some of it's nectar, some of it's almost sensual, it seems like, although it's not. And now we come to this part where we have to hear all these things. Parashuram, like lopping off the heads of thousands and thousands of people, 21 generations straight. What kind of God is that? What kind of loving God is that? Is there any love in this book? After you hear a whole chapter of that, you're going to wonder. Some people maybe. But he's just cleaning the house to make sure that God consciousness comes back to the whole universe, whole Vedic culture, bring it all back. And Krishna did the same thing. He organized the Battle of Kurukshetra, the biggest war to ever happen on the earth. And it was all demigods and demons coming to take birth, to duke it out here, just like we heard them duke it out in the ocean, the shore of the ocean of milk, and other places. This is what's actually happening. Okay. 18th chapter. King Yayati regains his youth. Remember, he was told that he could get his youth back so he could enjoy women. That didn't work out too well. Beginning with text 32. When Princess Sharmishta begged King Yayati for a son. You remember who Sharmishta was? Sharmishta? Yes. She was the daughter of the king, and Shukracharya was the Brahmin, the Brahmin, and Devayani was her daughter, and Shamishta threw her, one of them, Devayani took her clothes. Remember, they were all bathing, and then Shiva came by. Everybody got real embarrassed and covered them up with their clothes. But Devayani took the wrong clothes. No, Shamishta took the wrong clothes, and she cursed Shamishta, and then Shamishta cursed her back. And so then she threw Devayani in the well. And then, Yayati came and pulled her out and touched her hand to hand. That's marriage. In the old days, it's not you take them up for a trial run, to see if it's going to work out. As soon as you touch their hand, that's it. You're considered married in the Vedic age. That's how pure it was. That's how innocent and pure it was. Okay, when Princess Sarmishta begged Yayati for a son, because Sarmishta was then made to go. Devayani, when she got to marry the king, then she got a wish, and her wish was that Sharmishta become my maidservant. So she had to come and be the maidservant of her with all of her, friends. So when Devayani became pregnant, then Sharmishta, who was now just a maidservant, she wanted to get pregnant too. When Princess Sarmishta begged King Yayati for a son, the king was certainly aware of the principles of religion, and therefore he agreed to fulfill her desire. Although he remembered the warning of Shukracharya, he thought of this union as the desire of the Supreme, and thus he had sex with Sarmishta. So this isn't exactly real love. Purport. King Yayati was completely aware of the duty of a Kshatriya. When a Kshatriya is approached by a woman, he cannot deny her. This is a religious principle. Consequently, when Dharmaraj Yudhishthir saw Arjuna unhappy after Arjuna returned from Dwarka, he asked whether Arjuna had refused a woman who had begged for a son. Although Maharaj Yayati remembered Shukracharya's warning, he could not refuse Sarmishta. He thought it was wise to give her a son, and thus he had sexual intercourse with her after her menstrual period. This kind of lust is not against religious principles. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:11, Dharma viruto bhuteshu kamosmi, sex life not contrary to the principles of religion, is sanctioned by Krishna. Because Sarmishta, the daughter of a king, had begged Yayati for a son, their combination was not lust, but an act of religion. Text 33. Devayani gave birth to Yadu and Turvasu, and Sharmishta gave birth to Druya, Anu, and Puru. Text 34. When the proud Devayani understood from outside sources that Sharmishta was pregnant by her husband, she was frenzied with anger. Thus she departed for her father's house. Just in case you have any idea of getting married, this should kind of change your mind. Text 35. King Yayati was very lusty, followed his wife, caught her, and tried to appease her by speaking pleasing words and massaging her feet. But he could not satisfy her by any means. Hell hath no fury like the wrath of a woman. It's been true since time immemorial. Text 36. Shukracharya was extremely angry. You untruthful fool, lusting after women, you have done a great wrong. He said, I therefore curse you to be attacked and disfigured by old age, and invalidity. Shukracharya was no ordinary guy. Had years. King Yayati said, "O learned worshipable Brahmana, I have not yet satisfied my lusty desires with your daughter." Shukracharya then replied, "You may exchange your old age with someone who will agree to transfer your youth, his youth, to you." Purport. Then when King Yayati said that he had not yet satisfied his lusty desires with Shukracharya's daughter, Shukracharya saw that it was against the interests of his own daughter for Yayati to continue in old age and invalidity, for certainly his lusty daughter would not be satisfied. Therefore, Shukracharya blessed his son-in-law by saying that he could exchange his old age for someone else's youth. He indicated that if Yayati's son would exchange his youth for Yayati's old age, Yayati can continue to enjoy sex with Devayani. Text 38. This is what love is in the material world. Translation. When Yayati received this benediction from Shukracharya, he requested his eldest son, "My dear Yadu, please give me your youth in exchange for my old age and invalidity." Doesn't sound like a very good bargain, not like a very good idea. Text 39. "My dear son, I am not yet satisfied in my sexual desires, but if you are kind to me, you can take the old age given by your maternal grandfather, and I may take your youth, so that I may enjoy life for a few years more." Purport. This is the nature of lusty desires. In Bhagavad Gita 7.20 it is said, "Kamais taistaya rittigyana." When one is too attached to sense gratification, he actually loses his sense. The word rittigyana refers to one who has lost his sense. Here is an example. The father shamelessly asked his son to exchange youth for old age. Of course, the entire world is under such illusion. Therefore, it is said that everyone is pramatak, or exclusively mad. Nunam pramatak kurute vikarma. When one becomes almost like a madman, he indulges in sex and sense gratification. Sex and sense gratification can be controlled, however, when one achieves perfection, and one achieves perfection when he has no desires for sex. This is possible only when one is fully Krishna conscious. Yad abadi mamacheta Krishna padada vinde nava rasadaman udyatam rantumasit tad abidi batanari sangame smaryamane bhavadi mukak vikara shushtu nishtvinanam cha. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in Him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought and my lips curl with distaste. Sexual desire can be stopped only when one is fully Krishna conscious and not otherwise. As long as one has desires for sex, one must change his body and transmigrate from one body to another to enjoy sex in different species or forms. But although the forms may differ, the business of sex is the same. Therefore it is said, Punak punas charvita charvananam. Those who are very much attached to sex transmigrate from one body to another with the same business of chewing the chewed, tasting sex enjoyment as a dog, sex enjoyment as a hog, sex enjoyment as a demigod, and so on. Text 40. Yadu replied, "My dear father, you have already achieved old age, although you also were a young man. But I do not welcome your old age and invalidity, for unless one enjoys material happiness, one cannot attain renunciation." Purport. Renunciation of material enjoyment is the ultimate goal of human life. Therefore, the Varnashram institution is most scientific. It aims at giving one the facility to return home back to Godhead, which one cannot do without completely renouncing all connections with the material world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Nishkinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanon Mukasya. One who wants to go back home, back to Godhead, must be Niskinchana, free from all affinity for material enjoyment. Brahmanyupasyamashrayam. Unless one is fully renounced, one cannot engage in devotional service or stay in Brahman. Devotional service is rendered on the Brahman platform. Therefore, unless one attains the Brahman platform or spiritual platform, one cannot engage in devotional service. Or, in other words, a person engaged in devotional service is already on the Brahman platform. Mam chayo bibicharina bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 14:26. If one attains devotional service, therefore, he is certainly liberated. Generally, unless one enjoys material happiness, he cannot attain renunciation. Varnashrama therefore gives the opportunity for gradual elevation. Yadu, the son of Maharaj Yayati, explained that he was unable to give up his youth, for he wanted to use it to attain the renounced order in the future. Maharaj Yadu was different from his brothers. As stated in the next verse, Turvashush Choditat Pitra Druyus Chanush Chibharata Pratya Chakyur Adharmagya. Maharaj Yadu's brothers refused to accept their father's proposal because they were not completely aware of Dharma. To accept orders that follow religious principles, especially the orders of one's father, is very important. Therefore, when the brothers of Maharaj Yadu refused their father's order, this was certainly irreligious. Maharaj Yadu's refusal, however, was religious. As stated in the 10th canto, Yudosh Chadharma Shilasya. Maharaj Yadu was completely aware of the principles of religion. The ultimate principle of religion is to engage oneself in devotional service to the Lord. Maharaj Yadu was very eager to engage himself in the Lord's service, but there was an impediment. During youth, the material desire to enjoy the material senses is certainly present, and unless one fully satisfies these lusty desires in youth, there is a chance of one's being disturbed in rendering service to the Lord. We have actually seen that many sannyasis who accept sannyas prematurely, not having satisfied their material desires, fall down because they are disturbed. Therefore, the general process is to go through grihastha life and vanaprastha life and finally come to sannyas and devote oneself completely to the service of the Lord. Maharaj Yadu was ready to accept his father's order and exchange youth for old age because he was confident that the youth taken by his father would be returned. But because this exchange would delay his complete engagement in devotional service, he did not want to accept his father's old age, for he was eager to achieve freedom from disturbances. Therefore, because Yadu was eager to see the Lord's appearance in his dynasty as soon as possible. Oh, listen to this. Therefore, because Yadu was eager to see the Lord's appearance in his dynasty as soon as possible, Yadu refused to accept his father's proposal. He knew that Krishna was going to appear in his dynasty. This is called the Yadu dynasty. Yeah. That's where Krishna appeared in the Yadu dynasty. This was not irreligious, however, because Yadu's purpose was to serve the Lord. Because Yadu was a faithful servant of the Lord, Lord Krishna appeared in his dynasty. As confirmed in the prayers of Kunti, Yado Priyas Yan Bhavaye. Yadu was very dear to Krishna, who was therefore eager to descend in Yadu's dynasty. In conclusion, Maharaj Yadu should not be considered adharmagya, ignorant of religious principles. As the next verse designates his brothers, he was like the 4 Sanakas, Chatursana, who refused the order of their father, Brahma, for the sake of a better cause. Because the 4 Kumaras wanted to engage themselves completely in the service of the Lord as brahmacharis, their refusal to obey their father's order was not irreligious. Text 41. O Maharaj Parikshit, Yayati similarly requested his sons, Turvasu, Druyu, and Anu, to exchange their youth for his old age. But because they were unaware of religious principles, they thought that their flickering youth was eternal, and therefore they refused to carry out their father's order. Text 42. King Yayati then requested Puru, who was younger than these 3 brothers, but more qualified. My dear son, do not be disobedient like your elder brothers, for that is not your duty. 43. Puru replied, O your majesty, who in this world can repay his debt to his father? By the mercy of one's father, one gets a human form of life, which can enable one to become an associate of the Supreme Lord. Then, of course, it's the duty of the son to take the family back to Godhead by becoming a pure devotee. That's real love. Purport. The father gives the seed of the body, and this seed gradually grows and develops until one ultimately attains the developed human body, with consciousness higher than that of the animals. In the human body, one can be elevated to the higher planets. And furthermore, if one cultivates Krishna consciousness, one can return home, back to Godhead. This important human body is obtained by the grace of the Father, and therefore everyone is indebted to his Father. Of course, in other lives, one also gets a father and mother. Even cats and dogs have fathers and mothers. But in the human form of life, the father and mother can award their son the greatest benediction by teaching him how to become a devotee. When one becomes a devotee, he achieves the greatest benediction because he completely averts the repetition of birth and death. Therefore, the father who trains his child in Krishna consciousness is the most benevolent father in this world. It is said, Janame Janame Sabe Pita Mata Paya Krishna Guru Nahi Mile Bhaja Hari He. Everyone gets a father and mother, but if one gets the benediction of Krishna and Guru, he can conquer material nature and return home, back to Godhead, and take his father and mother with him. Text 44. Translation. A son who acts by anticipating what his father wants him to do is first class. One who acts upon receiving his father's order is second class. And one who executes his father's order irreverently is third class. But a son who refuses his father's order is like a father's stool. Purport. Puru, Yayati's last son, immediately accepted his father's proposal. For although he was the youngest, he was very qualified. Puru thought, I should have accepted my father's proposal before he asked, but I did not. Therefore, I am not a first-class son. I am second class. But I do not wish to become the lowest class type of son, who is compared to his father's stool. One Indian poet has spoken of Putra and Mutra. Putra means son and Mutra means urine. Both the son and urine come from the same genitals. If a son is an obedient devotee of the Lord, he is called Putra, or real son. Otherwise, he is not learned and is not a devotee. If he is not a learned and not a devotee, the son is nothing better than urine. Text 45. Shukadev Goswami said, in this way, O Maharaj Parikshit, the son named Puru was very pleased to accept the old age of his father. Yayati, who took the youth of his son, and enjoyed this material world as he required. Text 46. Thereafter, King Yayati became the ruler of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, and ruled the citizens exactly like a father. Because he had taken the use of his son, his senses were unimpaired, and he enjoyed as much material happiness as he desired. Text 47. In secluded places, engaging her mind, words, body, and various paraphernalia, Devayani, the dear wife of Maharaj Yayati, always brought her husband the greatest possible transcendental bliss. 48. King Yayati performed various sacrifices in which he offered abundant gifts to the Brahmanas to satisfy the Supreme Lord Hari, who is the reservoir of all the demigods and the object of all Vedic knowledge. Text 49. The Supreme Lord Vasudeva, who created the cosmic manifestation, exhibits himself as all-pervading, like the sky that holds clouds. And when the creation is annihilated, everything enters into the Supreme Lord. Vishnu and varieties are no longer manifested. Purport. As stated by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudevak Sarvamiti Samahatma Sidurlabaha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva is one with the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Absolute Truth. Everything in him is the beginning, and at the end all manifestations enter into him. He is situated in everyone's heart. Sarvasichaham Hridi Sanavishtaha. And from him everything is emanated. Janmadyasya Yataha. And from him everything is emanated. And all material manifestations, however, are temporary. The word swapna means dreams, and maya means illusion, and manodata means mental creations. Dreams, illusions, and mental creations are temporary. Similarly, all material creation is temporary. But Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the eternal, absolute truth. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Text 50, what a wonderful purport. Translation. Without material desires, Maharaj Yayati worshipped the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart as Narayana, and is invisible to material eyes, although existing everywhere. Purport. King Yayati, although externally seeming very fond of material enjoyment, was internally thinking of becoming an eternal servant of the Lord. Text 51. Although Maharaj Yayati was the king of the entire world and he engaged his mind and 5 senses in enjoying material possessions for 1,000 years, he was unable to be satisfied. Purport. The Kad Indriya, or unpurified senses, can be purified if one engages the senses and the mind in Krishna consciousness. Sarvopadi vinir muktam tat padatmena nirmalam. One must be freed from all designations. When one identifies himself with the material world, his senses are impure. But when one achieves spiritual realization and identifies himself as a servant of the Lord, his senses are purified immediately. Engagement of the purified senses in the service of the Lord is called bhakti. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. One may enjoy the senses for many thousands of years, but unless one purifies the senses, one cannot be happy. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport. So the ninth canto, 18th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled King Yayati Regains His Youth. Sorry, but that was the best brahmachari class I ever heard. Just reading Prabhupada's purports together. So nice. So nice. Prabhupada, thank you, Prabhupada,
Jai.
for coming to this material world, to this Western world especially. No one else could do it or would do it. Chapter 19. King Yayati achieves liberation. The 19th chapter describes how Maharaj Yayati achieved liberation after he recounted the figurative story of the he-goat and the she-goat. Here we go, gentlemen. One more little bump in the road on the way to Goloka. After many, many years of sexual relationships and enjoyment in the material world, King Yayati finally became disgusted with such materialistic happiness. When satiated with material enjoyment, he devised the story of a he-goat and she-goat corresponding to his own life and narrated the story before his beloved Devayani. The story is as follows. Once upon a time, if you want to know how to stay unagitated when you're out in Sankirtan, you just preach this to every woman you see. That's the safe path. The story is as follows. Once upon a time, while a goat was searching in a forest for different types of vegetables to eat, by chance he came to a well in which he saw a she-goat. He became attracted to this she-goat and somehow or other delivered her from the well, and thus they were united. One day thereafter, when the she-goat saw that the he-goat enjoying sex with another she-goat, she became angry, abandoned the he-goat, and returned to her Brahmana owner, to whom she described her husband's behavior. The Brahmana became very angry and cursed the he-goat to lose his sexual power. Thereupon the he-goat begged the Brahmana's pardon and was given back the power for sex. Then the he-goat enjoyed sex with the she-goat for many years, but still he was not satisfied. If one is lusty and greedy, even the total stock of gold in this world cannot satisfy one's lusty desires. These desires are like a fire. One may pour clarified butter on a blazing fire, but one cannot expect the fire to be extinguished. To extinguish such a fire, one must adopt a different process. The Shastra therefore advises that by intelligence one renounce the life of enjoyment. Without great endeavor, those with a poor fund of knowledge cannot give up sense enjoyment, especially in relation to sex, because a beautiful woman bewilders even the most learned man. King Yayati, however, renounced worldly life and divided his property among his sons. He personally adopted the life of a mendicant or sannyasi, giving up all attraction to material enjoyment, and engaged himself fully in devotional service to the Lord. Thus he attained perfection. Later, when his beloved wife Devayani was freed from her mistaken way of life, she also engaged herself in the devotional service of the Lord. And we'll stop right there. We'll start the chapter tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Another thing I heard from Gopi Purana that was very interesting, and that was after Kardama Muni did all his austerities and then prayed to Lord Vishnu when he actually appeared to him as a result of his devotional service, and he admitted that he wanted a wife. And so then it was arranged that Kardama Muni came and gave Davahuti as his wife. And then he lived with her for a long time, just doing austerities. Then I said before the class, we're tying this up, before and after, of my reflection. He created an aerial mansion for her because she was a princess from his mystic power. That could go anywhere, and they went anywhere and everywhere, and had sex for a long time before she conceived. And anyone who reads this is thinking, "Oh, these are materialists, gross materialists." But Gopi Pranadana pointed out that it was not possible for them to be materialists, because they were destined to be the father and mother of God. And you can't become the father and mother of God unless you're completely liberated souls. So these were liberated souls, and they were doing the duties, of getting prepared to have God as their child, which means that it had those other things had to be, out of the consciousness. And at the end, even Devahuti she was disgusted. They were both disgusted. And then, of course, Kapila then came after she had 9 daughters by him. Then everything was right. The whole thing was purified. They were disgusted with the whole thing. And then Kapila came. And then a good part of the Bhagavatam is dedicated to his instructions. One of the largest part of the Bhagavatam actually is the teachings of Kapila Dev to Devahuti. And that way Devahuti and became enlightened, and then Kapila Dev just left. Father had already left. As soon as the son arrived, he left. And then as soon as he got enlightenment, she got enlightenment from him, he left also. And she went back to Godhead. This is the whole purpose of the Varnashram system and of the system of spiritual education, to bring us to a point of enlightenment so we understand that is actually the goal of life for all of us. Okay, it's 5:30. It's now our open mic time. It's your turn. Okay, Rasika, start us off.
Well, I was already reflecting on this topic, and then your reflections brought it up again. But since it's mostly brahmacharis here today, and one saint, one who has transcended the Varnashram system.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So, how Srila Prabhupada mentions over and over again, and in particular in several places, says that the test of our realization is freedom from sex desire, both gross and subtle. And that...
Listen up, boys. You're hearing from a monk. That's been monk for longer than some of you have been alive.
So the Brahmachari ashram is where we come to. It's like I've shared with you before, Guru Maharaj, that I like the idea of an incubator. It's an incubator for Vaishnavism, where we're actually learning how to fulfill our other duties in life by first learning how to control our senses, so that in controlling the senses, then we can actually make progress on the road of self-realization. But we have a tendency to gauge our maturity based upon how much we know, rather than how free we are from the material energy. And this is an important thing for us to know, and it should be a means where we can actually attain humility, real humility, and then cling to Krishna, so that Krishna himself might set us free, that we might endeavor to please him by the practice of our devotional service, and by how we act towards one another, not just within the ashram, but generally within the community of Vaishnavas, and then broader into society itself. That if we'll please Krishna by the way we live and by how we practice, he can set us free from this energy, and we don't necessarily need to go through the purificatory process of grihastha ashram, the married life. We can remain. So the more we can take advantage of this time period as brahmacharis and really put our entire focus on being fully engaged in the process for the purpose of pleasing Krishna and being set free from sex desire, primarily. If we can be set free from sex desire, then everything else is a piece of cake. That's the biggie.
Prabhupada said 50 to 75% of the work is done.
So anyway, I just wanted to put that plug in. We're hearing these stories,
very nice.
And that's the moral of the story.
The Varnashrama culture, the Varnashrama system, is just meant for this, to become free from sex desire.
Yes.
So that you can actually love Krishna, because you cannot love Krishna as long as you are engaged in sex. It's not possible.
Even the desire for it. So.
No, see, the point of it, that's not exactly true, what you just said.
Mm.
That's not true. Otherwise you would contradict the Bhagavatam. Because Kodama Muni had, if it's your duty, that doesn't mean it's our duty, but it is possible for that to be your duty to the Lord, especially in the beginning of the creation, the beginning of each day of Brahma. The population has to be increased, and that's part of the Lord's plan.
Yes.
So the point is that the Varnashram system begins right here in brahmacharya life. And we're supposed to get this when we're 5, so that we are fixed in understanding that all women, except for your wife, is mother, and treating all women like mother. You don't get entangled in that, situation. And then the match is made by the parents, without that other romantic love marriage type things that always break up, practically always. And it doesn't work unless you've done this.
Mm. So
one way or another, I'm not trying to dismiss or diminish the importance of what you just said. You don't have to go to the married life, especially in the Kali Yuga. It's extremely dangerous, to say the least. But even if you do, unless you've done this first properly, and that's your point.
Yes.
Unless you've done this actually properly, you will not be able to get out of it. It will be your pathway to repeated birth and death for as long as you can imagine.
So if you all take a look at Canto 7 and Chapter 12 in your own time and read the introduction and the actual verses and purports, that it gives all of these distinctions and talks about the purpose for each of the ashrams. And in the introduction to that chapter, as Maharaj was stating, Prabhupada says that the whole purpose of the Vedic system is for the overcoming of sex indulgence.
Yeah, because that's what keeps us in the material world. It's the basic principle of material existence, because the whole material world begins with Shiva and Parvati having sex.
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole basis of the material world.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Another thing Prabhupada said about that was that don't think that the quality of the sensation is different in a dog's body or a hog's body or a bird's body or a human body. It's the same. You eat something on a golden plate and you eat something on a pie, it tastes the same. The taste of the food is the same. Yes, Jorge, tell us.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm hoping that I can word this properly. We were reading that it's a religious principle if a kshatriya is approached by a woman for the begetting of a son. So this is religious. But then we also hear that sex outside of marriage is irreligious. So they wouldn't be married, but she wants a son.
That's for only kshatriyas.
Only Kshatriyas.
Kings,
Okay.
Kings.
And then, but also, I mean, she wants a son, but she doesn't even have another husband, so she'd be raising this kid on her own. So it kind of seems a little confusing, you know, like, I don't know.
They go to the husband and they live together and raise the kid.
Mm. Okay.
That's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Just like when Samrishta went and did that, she was in the household, the kids raised.
Okay.
In this culture, which is a very high culture, even the Dasiputra means the son of the maidservant, is supported by the king.
Mm.
He's not allowed to inherit property, but he's maintained in the palace by the king.
Okay. Hmm. Okay, then that seems a lot better then. Yeah.
2 plus 2 is equal to 4.
Yeah, and I guess I just had one reflection as well, that I've read this before, and it just seems it just seems like a little heavy, but it always hits me so hard. How that the example is given that I guess a sun and urine both come from from the same place, and if the sun is so if the son doesn't take advantage of this birth and become a devotee, he's just as good as urine, you know.
Correct.
So I was like, wow, that is just like, I mean, it's powerful, you know. It's a very powerful image.
Tough love.
Yeah.
Krishna's tough love.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The sage is going to speak now in front of the brahmachari students.
I don't quite understand in the text 47, it describes that Devayani brought Yayati the greatest possible transcendental bliss. So even though she had a religious marriage and everything like that, I find it surprising it's described as great transcendental.
Have you ever heard of poetry?
Mm.
This is poetry. It's a poetic expression that in context means that it gave him what he thought he wanted, and she gave her what she thought she wanted. It's poetic. It's not meant to be taken literally that was transcendental. Poetry is like a body, and poetry is meant to give a meaning that's more than the words. That's the science of poetry. So that in that case, the word transcendental doesn't mean transcendental to the modes of material nature. It means transcendental to their expectations. It gave them even more than they had expected. It transcended their desires.
Thank you very much for that reading, Maharaj. And I thought it was very interesting how it mentioned that one is never satisfied with these desires. And it said that even demigods to animals to humans, they can change from whatever form they want, but it's never going to bring satisfaction. But to renounce all affinity for material enjoyment is to return back to Godhead. I wrote that down if that's correct. But I thought that was really, really powerful. And one more question. I had mentioned Krishna appearing in the Yadu dynasty. I couldn't see when that took place. Has it taken place yet?
Krishna appeared in the Yadu dynasty.
Ah.
That's why we have all these descriptions of the dynasties, and we'll come to it before we get to get to the Canto. We'll hear from Yadu all the way down to Vasudeva.
Perfect.
How
Thank
Krishna
you.
appeared in the Yadu dynasty of the moon.
Ooh. Thank you.
Ramachandra appeared in the dynasty of the sun, Surya dynasty, and Krishna appeared in the Soma dynasty. Yes, Bhakta Duck.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just wanted to make a comment, and I want to ask if it's the right understanding. We heard about the different sons of King Yayati and when he approached them in order to ask for their youth.
Yes.
And then we heard of Yadu, who he refused, but it said that he did so because he was thinking about his devotional service to Krishna. It said he was doing it because I guess he had material desires that he wanted to kind of fulfill so that he could get to the point of renunciation, where he could bring Krishna into the world quicker. But then the other sons of Yayati, they also refused, yet they did so out of their own selfishness, for their own mind. So it reminds me of Gita, about how one might be engaged in seemingly material affairs, same as a materialist, but it's completely different for a devotee.
Exactly. And that's applied. That's why I brought up that point up at Devahuti and Kardama. It appeared that they had the most sensual and opulent sensual life for a long time before they conceived the Supreme Lord. But it's like this is very difficult to understand. But I'm going to try to explain it to you in the terms that we can understand. Just like when the great devotees of the Lord are separated from the Lord, they act like they're suffering. They sometimes cry and they stop to eat and they become from a material point of view, they look like they're suffering. There's a really good explanation of this in the 6th chapter of the first part of Srimad-Bhagavatam. When there's a discussion in Dwarka about the Brajbasis, and some of them take the part of the Brajbasis, and some of them take the part of the Yadu, the Dwarkavasis, and some are. And Krishna, in the meantime, is still in the bed. He stayed in. He never stays in, but he was staying in. And it turns out that he was staying in because he was feeling separation from Braj. And even his wives were giving evidence for how it was that he's always thinking about them, even in the bed. He's thinking about them, and sometimes he says things in his dreams, or right to their face, remembering Radharani and the other gopis. And so the point is that when persons who are very elevated appear to be one thing, they're actually another. And it takes a devotee knowledgeable in this science, spiritual science, to see it and to understand it and perceive it, and therefore accept it for what it is. And Sanatana gives the example that when ice, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again because a good thing repeated means more thorough understanding, because it's in another context. This is how you understand Krishna consciousness. You understand the same thing in different contexts, and the same thing in different contexts, and that way our understanding becomes thorough. And by thorough understanding, we can give up the material world. So when ice gets hot and cold enough, and you put it on the skin, it feels hot. Even though it's actually cold, it feels hot. You burn yourself by putting your skin next to dry ice. So like that, the pleasure that Devahuti and Kardamana seemed to be having was actually devotional service, a part of their devotional service. And the apparent suffering that the Brajbasis have in suffering from Krishna, it appears to be suffering, but it's not suffering. It's actually the deepest ecstasy of love of God, the goal of life. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya recommends that we serve, when we do our service, that we learn the art of serving in separation from Krishna. That's why we spend so much time thinking about and talking about Krishna, so that we can actually learn the art of feeling separation from Krishna when we're doing our service. That's the recommended method by Lord Chaitanya, especially for the Kali Yuga. If you chant Hare Krishna and read the Bhagavatam and do the other services that you do, spreading Krishna consciousness, in separation from Lord Chaitanya, especially, but Radha and Krishna, but first Lord Chaitanya, then you get the real thing. Then you can understand spiritual life. Before you do, you can't understand. It's like gold and iron. They're both metals, but one is a lot more valuable than the other. Love and lust. Love means for the pleasure of yourself. Lust means the pleasure for yourself. I'm sorry. That was a mistake. Sorry. Edit. Push the delete button. Type in the right words. Lust means pleasure for yourself. Love means pleasure for Krishna. And even when it seems to be the pleasure from someone extended from you, your family or your society or community or whatever, the whole universe in some cases, rare cases, then it's still about me. Therefore, the only love is in the spiritual world. Why? Why? Because it's temporary. The so-called love that we're feeling with parents and family members and community and nation and company or whatever it is, it's because it's temporary. It cannot last. And real love is eternal. And that's what we're looking for. All of us, everybody in the material world is looking for that. They're just looking in the wrong place. And unless you're in a human body, you can't understand that. But in the human body, you have a potential for understanding that. And therefore, it's very hard and it's very tragic when a human being doesn't learn that and then comes back as a dog or a pig. Prabhupada said, the present human civilization means I work like an ass to learn how to become a pig. You work like an ass so that you can have sex with whatever you want and eat whatever you want. That's a pig. Pig can eat whatever he likes, and he can grovel in the sewer, and he likes it. You see, they all have big smiles on their faces. You go to Vrindavan, you don't see it in the West, but they actually bathe in the sewage. And then mother, sister, daughter, doesn't make any difference. The nearest female pig, they just have sex. No discrimination. So they work like an ass to build all these skyscrapers and build dynasties and empires, just so they can become a pig in the next life, or even in this life.
That's tragic.
It is tragic, and that's why we're here, gentlemen. That's why we're here. And that's why we need to hear this. And that's why this is in the 11th canto, which we're about to hear. We are hearing the he-goat and the she-goat. We just heard. And it was far out, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. How he tells it exactly like what he did with her. He was telling about the she-goat and the he-goat, but it was just about those two. And then it was so poignant and so powerful that even Devayani gave it up at the end and became spiritually advanced. Okay, I'm going to stop early because I couldn't, and you can hear my voice, it's the same. It's not, unless I take extra rest tonight, I'm not going to be able to read for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and future generations, which is my service right now. Bhagavatam ki jai. Brahmacharya ashram ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Okay, tomorrow Sunday, see you at the same time, same place. The live studios at Radha Lane, 4:30 in the afternoon, Central Time, USA. Hare Krishna. See you then. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Do we have anything?